Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button. And if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. George Ezra, Gold Rush Kid. George Ezra is a British singer, songwriter, one of my personal favorite solo acts of the past decade. I've been strongly following his career ever since I heard Budapest on the radio back in 2014 and have been enamored with his deeper voice and folkier, almost country-ish take on pop music from that debut album. But it wasn't until Staying at Tamara's was released in 2018 that I became a die-hard fan. If I remember correctly, that one was probably in my top 3 albums released that year. But now, 4 years later, George is back with his third album, Gold Rush Kid. Definitely was looking forward to this after hearing just how poppy the majority of the singles were, but at the same time I had this lingering suspicion that George was going to lose that initial flame that made him so unique. So did that end up happening? Let's find out as I review this album track by track. We will start with the singles, with there being 3 of them, the first being the opener Anyone For You (Tiger Lily), which could not be a more appropriate opener. It perfectly captures the essence of the album cover, sprawling, sunny, carefree pop. I adore the uplifting chiming piano melody, snappy snare, and the bass undercurrent makes way for a fantastic groove. Although it's George's vocals that really sell the song. On a lot of his previous material, he had a tendency to be a bit more stonewalled in his delivery, preferring to stick to his more rich timbre. But on here, and on a lot of the tracks on this record, he's far more expressive and lively as a performer. He really kills it, as he sings about being anyone for this person, a pick-me-up, a shoulder to cry on, a light in the dark, whatever they may need. I'll be honest, it's probably George's best lead-off single to date. The second single, Green Green Grass, only continues the happy-go-lucky introductory portion of the record, this time even more so with a polished, tried-and-true pop formula, and I have a hunch this is going to be a big hit from this era. Much like how Shotgun was an out-of-nowhere smash from Staying at Tamara's. This was also the song where this fear of inauthenticity really set in, because it's just a full-on pop song. Steady beating of the drum, a serene piano-led pre-chorus leading into the bass-driven bop that is the chorus. Also, yet again, love George getting into his higher range. At times it can feel a bit awkward, but he seems to know how to control it very well. I don't really have too much of an issue with this song. Of course, it's pop, but I can see others not really feeling this as much just because it is such a simple song. And the third and final single, I Went Hunting, which I was not feeling this one at all. It's one of the closest George has come to a full-on country song, and I like when he incorporates elements of country into his music, but I think this one goes just a bit too far. I think the closest song in George's discography to this would probably be like Spectacular Rival off Wanted on Voyage, but at least that had some menacing energy to it. This one is extremely slow, kind of feathery, wistful almost, with the crying sliding guitar, light acoustic plucking, only gradually adding some extra strings for the latter choruses. Speaking of, this is one of the most nothing choruses in George's discography. At least Don't Matter Now had some infectious pop nature to it. This is just plodding, and those falsettos don't really help either. Yeah, honestly, it's one of my least favorite George Ezra songs, period. Why this was released as a single is kind of baffling to me. Now for the rest of the tracks. The title track, Gold Rush Kid, yet again allows the sunshine to pass through for the third track on the opening stretch. This one leaning more into the tropical vibes a little while still maintaining George's charming brand of whimsy. And it's another smash hit in my eyes. I love the plunky synthetic playfulness accenting the snare, the bass, and the immaculately gritty guitar work for the post-chorus. Out of the 3 summary tracks that kick off the record, this one is also the one where George revels the most in terms of his delivery. He just sounds so happy singing this tune, especially on the bouncy chorus. So much so that it's near impossible to not get suckered into the inexorable aura he emits. Such a fun song, certainly an album highlight. Manila is a bit of a drop-off from the ceaseless summer party that kicked off the record into the more laid-back and effortless portrait of George. Like how the opening stretch was a massive beach party, the sun's shining bright and everyone's having a great time, but for this one, the optimistic vibes are still there in the beautiful guitar work plus the solo. The overall toe-tapping tempo and chorus radiates that massive chant-along energy, but it's just not as vivacious is all, and it does feel like a bit of a natural progression on the record with George remaining the eccentric host on the stage as he was earlier. I do like the lyrics here too, blissfully singing about wanting to take this love interest somewhere, get a taste of the love life, as he specifically name drops Manila, which is the capital city of the Philippines. Very unique destination song title. Gotta love the more worldly exposure instead of singing about Barcelona for the umpteenth time. Regardless of that mini tangent there, it's a fun song. Fell in Love at the End of the World begins the mostly slow and more mellow section of this record, save for one exception which we'll get to later, and I really enjoyed this one. It's a very earnest song, mostly sold by George's endearing charisma, especially as he sings out the title of the song. The instrumental is pretty smooth and virtuous. I like how it kicks off with some lovely strings, slowly incorporating some brass and piano throughout the song, while that snare drum just keeps pounding. And the overall aura has a decent bit of opulence surrounding it. Lyrically, I'm pretty sure this is just about finding love in the darkest of times. When all looked hopeless for the two of them, they found each other. Very nice tune here. Don't Give Up leans back into the country side of his music, not as drastically as on I Went Hunting, but you can definitely make out that recognizable steel guitar-esque cry and the crisp vibe the song emits. It's got pretty solid energy to it too, even with the warm keyboard foundation. The clicky percussion and soft acoustics present a snappy rhythm. Yet again, George fluctuates his delivery. His falsettos here aren't as egregious or as prevalent as they were on previous tracks, which is definitely an added bonus. Good song. Dance All Over Me is the sole true sunny spot in this more laid-back area of the record, and it's a refreshing change of pace. Certainly not the same sugary, polished pop of the opening stretch, but this feels like pop with that authentic George Ezra sprinkle, and that might be why it's one of my favorites on the record. Reminds me of some of the more upbeat cuts from Staying at Tamara's. Love the piercing yet tamed strings and the almost overwhelming closing few seconds with the guitar, the percussion, and the bass, all feeling so triumphant and uplifting. Really enjoy this one. In the Morning, the longest track here and the only one to succeed 4 minutes, and this one has a very similar cadence and energy to I Went Hunting. But I think what makes this one stand out a bit more is just the song structure and the pacing of it. Feels much less plodding as well. Another thing I prefer about this one is the vocal melody, which is a bit more lush and developed than the slow barrenness of I Went Hunting. And the same can be said for the instrumental too. I like the delicate piano, comfortable acoustics, and nice string accoutrements. The lyrics are stupidly simple, just about no matter how bad the day may seem, tomorrow is a brand new day with new memories and new life to experience. To me, it's not a standout, especially since this and I Went Hunting are back-to-back in the tracklist, but it's definitely a breath of fresh air and a reassurance that George can still do this style well enough. Sweetest Human Being Alive, which is the main, slow, passionate ballad on the record, and out of all the slower cuts here, this one's definitely my favorite. George has always killed the ballads, which I really noticed on The Beautiful Dream from Staying at Tamara's, and this is another gorgeous cut. The overall melody has a poppy garnish to it that floats very well over the striking piano, and when those strings come in for the final chorus, that's just the kill shot, honestly, only amplifying George's longing vocals as he sings about hypothetically meeting his future soulmate, declaring them the sweetest human being alive. It's a bit cheesy, but this track really stands out on the record. Great stuff. Love Somebody Else is an extremely serene, gentle, airy song, and it's another pretty good cut. The drums have a calming thump to them, the piano work is amazing, and I swear these strings have not missed once on the record. The chorus to this is one of the most vibey things on the album, especially with George's soothing delivery, as the lyrics actually turn out to be a bit bleaker than the song might show, just about how he's kinda started to give up on himself, becoming extremely pessimistic and expecting this partner to love someone else. I always enjoy that kind of contrast, and this is a good example of that. And finally, the closer, The Sun Went Down, the shortest track here, only about 2 minutes and 14 seconds, and this just kind of feels like a brief denouement to the album. A little bit disappointing for a closer if you ask me. The song structure here is non-existent, mostly just repeating the same line for the entire song, while a subdued acoustic guitar and light pianos saunter through the runtime. I do like when the added background singers for the second chorus harmonize with George. It helps to give some more volume to the mix, but aside from that, I'm not really crazy about this as a closer. Overall, Gold Rush Kid is another great record in George's catalog, definitely a contender for one of the best opening stretches on a record this year, and while I do personally think there could have been a bit of differentiation in the latter moments of the album, the songs themselves are often compact, polished, very well performed, and hold up George's aesthetic well. Comparatively speaking though, this is probably George's weakest record, mostly just because it has some tracks that I don't care for or feel very skeletal, or some just feeling useless in the track list, but it is still a great record. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!